Hey everybody, it's your pal Val back with another video. I know I haven't done a video in a hot minute. I don't really have a full comprehensive answer as to why that was, other than just having that existential crisis. What is this? What is this channel? What are these videos? What am I doing? And all that sort of stuff. And that sort of stopped me dead, in my tracks of like, well, is this a toy channel? Is this a free to be you and me channel? Is this uh, channel talking about comic books? What is this channel? And I still don't know. Though I think the more broad answer is I kind of like this channel to be something where like just I can be real on it. I think that would be the best thing to do, is for me to be real on it. But I mean, the thing about that, and the thing about social media in general, just the whole thing, or over the last like what 15, 20 years, is that you can be real. You can be real, but it's not not everybody's going to dig it. Not everybody's going to dig it. It's you know but you could have a toy channel. You have a channel just about all the toys that you collect, and not everybody's going to dig it. There's gonna be people who are like, "Why are you collecting toys?" And then people just be like, taking bits of your toy channel, TikTok or whatever, and then going, "Look at this person. It's too old to be collecting toys," and very, very disgusting. It's the nature of the beast, isn't it? The, part of social media is just going on there and and expressing yourself, and the other thing is that not everybody's going to like it, right? Not everybody's going to like it. You can't create a thing, especially you can't create a thing everybody's going to like, especially if you're having like a general audience thing, like Facebook, X, YouTube, I guess, to add the TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. Those are general audience type things. So not everybody, if you put in a niche thing, not everybody's going to dig it. They're just not. They're not going to dig it. And some of them will let you know that they don't dig it. And you're going to just, you're going to turn some people off. And there's no way around that. There's no way around that. You can't have something like let's say X, which is, just this gigantic, godforsaken million person slash bot pool of ears and eyes and everything like that. You can't have that and not and everybody be okay and be respectful. It's just never going to happen. I would love that if that was true. If we could have that, I would love it if we could just have a thing like that, and like millions of people and bots, all on the same platform from all different walks of life, and then they're all respectful for each person's portion of how they express themselves. I would love that. That is never going to happen. Now, why is that not going to happen? It's not going to happen because that's not how humans are wired. That's not how humans are wired. That's not how humans are wired. Humans are generally wired to congregate towards things that they can kind of relate to and stuff like that. That's how humans are wired. But by the same, the turn of the coin is that, when they see something that they can't relate to or whatever, they're like, it's just how humans are wired. You can't escape that. So, and I kind of realized this today, or was brought to my attention again today, because it was like on X, and J.K. Rowling. I don't hate her. I don't really hate her. I I can't say I'm not a fan because I don't like her. I'm not. I read the first Harry Potter, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And then I read the second. I started reading the second Harry Potter. I was like, oh, this is kind of like the first one, and this is nice. And then like I just sort of like left the book on the beach, like a third read, because I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. And nothing anything was bad with it. There was nothing bad with it at all. And I think it's it's a franchise and an IP and everything that's well worth people loving it. I just, but I have nothing against J.K. Rowling, but it's like she decided on her own, just Nobody asked her to do it, but she was going to do it today. She was going to make a post about, I guess there's this one of these holidays, like sort of like no, not trends, Asexual Visibility Day. And so she wanted to take the banner like for Asexual Visibility Day. She wanted to put it there, and she wanted to go, and she wanted to take a big shit on it. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to take a big shit on it. She wanted to take a big shit on it and say, oh, just another fake thing. Like, look at me and my attention. Just because you don't want, if she says something like you don't want like a wank or whatever the fuck, like she's just like, oh, just because you just want some sex, everybody has to be, and that sort of thing. And it's like, and that's what she does with trans people, and that's what she does with stuff, and that's her shtick. That's what she does. So she does that, and then of course all these people go into the comments to say thank you, that's really great, and that's these ideas of these awareness days are stupid, and it's just attention getting. And then it goes into but then it makes that slide, like with that very easy seamless slide into, and you know what else, I think asexuals are creepy as fuck. That's how that conversation was starting to go. It was just starting to go like, they're just so, they're like, oh, just because I had one bad incident, I'm not having sex. It was just like all the stuff about how they didn't like asexual people. And it was especially rich. It was coming from, some of it was like coming from people, I guess, who identify as gay or whatever. And they're sort of like, but they're positioning it like, it's like, they're positioning it like, I'm normal. These people are weirdos and creeps. I totally agree. Like they shouldn't be under any sort of like blanket category like us, because we're normal. They are just kind of, they're freaking weirdos. And it was just like this whole it was turned into this whole ugly thing. And it was just like, I'm just watching it, and it's just like humans 101. It's just humans 101. And it's just like, there's so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack from that thing. And I mean, I guess if you don't know, like, I guess the term asexual refers to someone who's just like sex. I think it's not necessarily they'd never want to have sex ever, but it's just not their immediate jam. Like they're things that they just sort of like more than it, and it's further down on the list. But I mean, it's much more complicated than that, and I'm not an expert. But I will say that I have been accused of being, just a little bit asexual. That is what some people I have been accused of being a little bit on the asexual spectrum. I think his one ex-boyfriend put it, he said like, you're just like a big mind hovering in the air, which I sort of initially took as a compliment, because that sounds as sexy as hell. But yeah, so like, like it's been, and I mean, in terms of my attitude towards sex, I mean, it's probably not as important to me immediately, or it has never been as immediately important to me as, say, it has been for people, the sort of general populace around me. Doesn't mean I don't like it. Doesn't mean anything like that, or don't want it. But there are overtones. I think I probably have like asexual overtones to my personality, and it's. And then the question is like in that J.K. Rowling shitstorm post, it's like, they're like, well, nobody needs to know about it. Oh, I mean, nobody needs to know about. I mean, that's I think like, this is what I think about this stuff. Like in general, sort of going about your life, going to the store, just dealing with people at work, and just all these sort of general things, and like maybe even going on X or YouTube, or I don't know, like these general sort of audience things. Like, I don't know if these are the places that even sometimes these topics are applicable, like but then it's like J.K. Rowling and these people take it to the extreme. They take it to the extreme of it should never be mentioned ever. But it's not only it should never be mentioned in public, but then it's like, and then also let's just do a character assassination on all people who may identify as asexuals, like as disgusting, weird human beings that should just be, like this and that, and definitely shouldn't any type of, and they're just, doing it for attention. And, if they just had one good lay, then it'd all be cured. Because this was the road that post on X was going down. It was going down that road, and I was like, yep, it could just, just I could just set my watch to it. Like, it was just so, again, it just seems so much like the way humans are. It just, it's a sort of thing where it's like, and I guess that's the other thing, it's like you'll be a group that feels like the minority, right? And then you get a lot of people around you and stuff like that. And then it's like, what seems to often happen is then that group will pick a new minority to shit on. So it's like, let's say you're a bunch of women, and you feel like you've been in a male-dominated society and persecuted and this and that. And so now you've created like a thing. Now you've got to find, I find, and this is not with every person in these groups, but there's a tendency. I'm telling you, like, I've noticed this for decades. There's a tendency where you go, so now we need to find people to shit on. And it's not just like finding people to shit on, like, we'll just shit on these Republicans because obviously they are terrible and they are against abortion and they are male chauvinist pigs. And but it starts to, they need to find more. It's like a thing programmed within you, the human psyche or the human zeitgeist, like the human egregore, communal soul of humans to do that. It's like you're in it, like I've noticed this. So it's like, and then it's like, so they go, not only like they don't like the Republicans, that like that was the big thing for feminists, don't like the Republicans, don't like conservatives for all these reasons, this and that, Handmaid's Tale and everything. But then it starts to go like, what else I don't like? I don't like trans people. I don't really like them. And then it's like, and they give reasons, why they're like, and they go think about trans women in sport. And I mean, and I think that is a complicated issue, and things like that. But then it goes further than that. And then you can just see like, they don't like them. They don't like them. And I would say, like, having been a woman active in feminist causes, both academically when I was in college and within, let's say, the geek comic book community, like 10, almost 15, years ago, I would say, well, one of the things I really noticed was that there would often be this thing where and this is before the trans stuff, where they would just be like, they would have a bee in their bonnet sometimes for two different types of women. One bee in the bonnet was this woman, she's coming out here, she's giving, like she's saying she's one of us and this and that, but look at her, like, look how she has these big boobs and this and that, and she thinks she's so hot and everything, and it would be like this sort of Mean Girls thing on that. Just like strict, like just basic Mean Girls. But then there would be another one they would do, would be like, this girl, I don't know, like she kind of doesn't seem like a girl much at all. She seems more like a boy. She seems kind of masculine. She seems kind of, I wonder if that's really just a man. And so I'm just letting you know, this is a thing before the whole big trans thing and everything like that, trans in sports and trans in bathrooms and this and that. I'm just here to let you know, if there was a thing in certain circles, in feminist circles, of like, oh, this, I don't know if this is really she's really feminine enough. And it's funny, right? Because you'd think that feminists would be like, that's their whole thing. That's their whole jam, right? Is fighting against, cliches about women, and like, saying like women can't be this and women can't be construction workers and women can't be bodybuilders and women can't do that. And where does it? But then it was like, it was so funny, and I've noticed this both in academic circles, feminist academic circles, and I mean feminist academic circles like almost 30 goddamn years ago, and then also within these geek/comic circles, there would be this thing like this, like like this paranoia that this woman, was kind of like not really a woman. and and it wasn't even about like necessarily trans, because that like this was before the trans conversation was going on. It would just be this thing like, oh, I don't know, and this and that, and it would be more motivated just via meanness, being that mean girl thing again, the way that they would do about certain women who looked a little too sexy and stuff like that, which is what's also funny, right? Like it'd be funny. It's funny that there would be feminists who would, you know, sex positive and women can be this and that and they shouldn't be this and that, and then they would see like this sexy woman, this woman who was like a little too booby or a little too this, and then behind closed doors they would be like, oh, she thinks she's so hot. But they would do this about like women that they thought were too masculine. And so I never so it's like it was like they needed to it's that persecuted minority. I don't know how much of minority women are. They seem to be like half the population, but it's sort of people who feel persecuted. They're fighting for rights, and then also they're trying to find other outsiders that they then can shit on. And so then you see that then with like parts of the gay lesbian community, then they need to take like a really big dump on the trans people and say like, oh, like it's like we're okay. They're the weirdos. And then it's like, I'm sure within the trans community, it goes down the list. I think it just keeps going. And what I'm trying to say is that this is like human physics, man. This is like human psyche physics. And it's inevitable. That's what I think. I think it's these types of things are inevitable. And I think one thing I'm not saying is that a person doesn't have the right to feel the way they do. I mean, if you honestly don't like this woman because of this, and don't like this thing because of that, and you don't like these people because of that, and this person is just kind of mid and low class, and you don't like these people, and then I do not order people to change. I don't order them to change and like be like, no, you must like everybody, this and that. Like your feelings are not valid, and this and that. I don't care. I think what you want. Be who you want. Think what you want. But it's when people do that, but they also pretend that they're so, so elevated and progressive and liberal and so open-minded, and yet they also do this. Then they also just they shit on these other people. It's like. And it's just like, own it, baby. Own it. If you're going to be a snob, if you're going to be a mean girl, if you're going to be mean boy, this and that, this is what I'm saying is just own it. Own it. That's all. I would have more respect for someone who would own it. That's all. I think, it's, if you don't like this whole thing with comics, like for the longest time, I worked in the comic book industry as an editor for DC Comics and as like a writer for Marvel and other places. And one thing that I always noticed was that there was this like there's this class system, and it was very funny because it was really kind of based on. It ended up being based on like were you like more of the regular comic books, like with the nerds and the geeks, and there was such hatred for the nerds and geeks. There was such hatred for them, and so like if from some of these industry people, there's just this. They're so gross, and these comic books they're so base, and we're trying to do more adult things, and we're trying to do this and that, and like so then and like you and I swear to God, like at DC Comics, that was a setup between like the regular DCU comics, like people like Superman and Batman, and then the Vertigo offices who did like Sandman and all Hellblazer and all that stuff. They were like on they're on the upper floor. Like you can see the metaphor there. They're on the upper floor, and then us, like all the people just putting out, like cranking out the Superman and Batman and stuff, were like on the lower floor, and you could see that sort of. There was a sort of snobbery in some circles. I'm saying, but in the part of everyone, but like, there was a snobbery, and there was definitely like this anger and hatred towards and just disgust. At what they consider just to be these unwashed masses of nerds, buying the books. And like, if one day, we need elevate comic books to a way, we'll get rid of all these nerds. And so this is just another, it's again, this is just the way the human I think there's a tendency with humans to be like this, and it to be like that, and then also to feel though that they are the good people, and those people that they don't really, like that are kind of mid and kind of low classness, and that those are it's they don't dislike these people because of any sort of like real class thing or anything like that, because they are so enlightened, like they would never do that, like they would never, like I would never discriminate against just because of like perceived lower class or upper class or anything like that. No, I'm a very just elevated person. It's because they are just inhuman. And that's what made Donald Trump, like, walking on the scene so perfect. It made it so perfect because then that he was it. He was like what I was referred to as like he's the Ozymandias squid. If you know Watchmen, like he was the perfect person just to step in and just be like, oh, you know, I don't hate these I don't hate these unwashed nerds because of I'm just a snob. I hate them because they all support Donald Trump, all of them, and that's why, and that makes them inhuman, and that's why. When is, I mean, I was there. I was like watching this stuff back in the day, and you kind of also dislike these people because you thought they were unwashed nerds, and you just didn't like them, and you just thought they were low class. So own it. That's how you felt. Just own it. And so, so going back to J.K. Rowling and all these peeps on her thread about hating asexuals, like, the last thing that I would ever say to these people is, you should love asexuals. You should respect them. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying own it that you're snobs. Own it. Own it that you want to, like you want to feel better about yourselves and everything like that, and you want to just shove the shit onto the next group, and just own it. Like it's that was a thing, like in the 80s, at least the snobs and everybody, like, they kind of owned it. They kind of owned being a snob. And I always think of like I don't know if a young James Spader, ever played a character like this. I think he did. But when I would think of like own being a snob, like a James Spader, just being like a young James Spader back in the day, like just own it, own being like a snob. Like don't do that shit and then be like, oh, but you see, I'm a very good person. I just very care much about this and that, and I'm very elevated and this, just so that's how I feel about it. So anyway, I don't know, man. I just so again, that comes down to, I'm gonna be real on this channel. I'm gonna I'm gonna offend people, and I'm gonna alienate people. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna make people feel uncomfortable and all that jazz. And but I'm not claiming to be. Here's the thing: I'm not claiming to be this award-winning, wonderful, enlightened human being and everything like that. I'm just talking about how I feel, and my feelings may change, and I'm just trying to live my life, and you know, that's what I'm trying to do. So, as we all are, and yeah. Did I babble too much about too many things? Perhaps, perhaps, but yeah, just keeping it real, and I'm hoping to have like a list of things to talk about. It's for the future, but yeah, I just wanted to get on here and say that, and just speak my piece, and if this talk alienated you, and you're just like, that's fine. But again, that's the thing. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm not telling you that you're wrong for feeling that way. It's just, it's that type of person, again, who presents themselves as very enlightened and very like socially enlightened and just everything. And then meanwhile, they have this whole pack of prejudices inside of themselves. And the only way they can really rectify it in their mind is to dehumanize just dehumanize the people that they feel it against, because they shouldn't be feeling that because they are enlightened. That type of person, I can deal with a troll like who's just in my face, like blah, blah, so much better than I can deal with that other type of person. So does this mean like I'm going to go out and hate on J.K. Rowling? No. Does this mean I'm going to really go and give the rest of her books a chance? Probably not. But that's it. So that's all I got to say. And hopefully next video, I really want to put more things up here. I'll do that. And thanks for listening and have a great day. Bye.